Hey there, card folk. Speedrobo here. On today's episode of Exploring Card Game Design, we will be talking about Vanguard Zero. We will be looking at the game on its own merits, so for today's analysis, we will be ignoring the context of Zero being a part of the Card Fight franchise. Let's get going. Part 1. Interactivity. As talked about in previous episodes, there are multiple levels of player interactivity. In general, games work better and feel better for different levels of players when they are in the middle of the interactivity spectrum. Vanguard Zero is the least interactive game I have ever played. When it is not your turn, there is absolutely nothing you can do. While this is similar to Hearthstone, Hearthstone's secret system still manages to add a little spice to proceedings. Vanguard Zero's closest mechanic to this is perfect guards. The key difference is that perfect guards will always activate at certain highly predictable times and will work in the same way each time. This results in horrifically boring gameplay when it's not your turn. Might as well just put down the phone and do something else when you're not up to bat. Part 2. Deck building. Vanguard Zero has the most restricted deck building system of any game I have ever played. Not only is there a hard deck building restriction in the form of clans, but you're also restricted on how much of each grade you can play. You must run 13 of each grade in your deck, and there's no option to change it. This results in deck building being uninteresting, as your lineup is virtually predestined for every single clan. 3. Luck Dependency. Vanguard Zero uses a trigger system. In this system, when your main unit attacks, you reveal 1 to 2 cards from the top of your deck. If those cards have a trigger icon, 5,000 power is granted to one of your units, as well as another effect. When a player takes damage, a trigger check is also applied. The game is overly dependent on these triggers, to say the least. A single trigger can completely sway the outcome of the game, especially on the defensive end. As there is no way for the non-turn player to change the outcome of the battle, winning or losing is connected to whether or not you get a damage trigger. Then, if your opponent gets a damage trigger, as the attacker, you will need one when your Vanguard attacks to properly execute the turn as planned. Basically, you either get triggers, or you lose. The system makes players feel like the game is dependent on luck, which it is, rather than player input or skill, which it's not. 4. Balance. I'll just come out and say it. Vanguard Zero has no balance when it comes to its cards. Let's start with triggers. There are 4 types: draw, heal, crit, and stand. Crit triggers give your Vanguard 1 extra damage when its attack hits. Stand triggers restand one of your rear guards. Draw triggers draw you 1 card. Heal triggers heal 1 damage if your damage is the same or more than your opponent's. There is 1 trigger which is obviously and objectively vastly superior to all the others. Can you guess which? Yup, it's the draw trigger. No matter what, when your draw trigger activates, you will draw 1 card. Your turn, your opponent's turn, first damage, or last damage, you will always gain something useful for this trigger. No requirements needed to fulfill. Heal triggers will only help out when you're losing the game, and there isn't much you can do about that. So half the time your heals just don't work. Crits are only helpful during your turn, when your Vanguard is attacking your opponent's Vanguard, and if that attack is going to hit. Stands are somehow even worse than crits. They're only helpful when you have a rested rearguard, it's your turn, and your opponent has a unit with low enough power for the unit you stand to hit. So why wouldn't you just max out on the trigger that would always help? No reason not to. Card effect balancing is just as out of whack. The only 2 effects that really matter in Zero are, number 1, removing cards from the field, and number 2, increasing your Vanguard's critical. Since you can only attack the enemy Vanguard to deal damage after you have removed the defending cards from the front row, Removing them before attacking allows for extra damage to be dealt. Increasing your Vanguard's crit works in the same way. Use your other units to take out the front, then boom, extra damage. Does drawing cards help? No, not really. Firstly, your trigger lineup should be 9 draw at all times, so your draw power is coming from there. Secondly, once your board is set up, all you really have to do is replace your front row each turn. So just one extra draw on top of your normal draw each turn will do. How about restanding? Does that help? Nope! Each time you hit your opponent's Vanguard, they just get stronger. So restanding a weak unit won't do anything for you. What about increasing your power? In general, not super helpful. Most of the time your attacks will be guided into the rear guards, then your final attack will be into your opponent's Vanguard. As long as your rear guard's power matches your opponent's rear guard, and your Vanguard matches your opponent, there's no reason to increase your power further. This results in clans with retire power being objectively superior to clans that just don't have those options available. Vanguard Zero is a shoddily put together card game. Poor balancing, limited choices, and an over-reliance on luck results in a game that is boring, frustrating, and the epitome of pay to win. I've been Speedrobo, and I'll see you later.